In 1997, the largest cash robbery in American history was pulled off by someone who had the keys. Alan Pace worked security at Dunbar Armored in Los Angeles. He knew everything: guard schedules, vault combinations, when the most cash would be sitting inside. So he recruited his childhood friends for the ultimate inside job. Pace spent months mapping escape routes, learning when alarms would be off, timing the perfect window. On a quiet weekend, they struck. Using his security access, Pace led his crew into the facility. They knew exactly where to go, exactly what to take. In one night, they loaded 3,000 pounds of cash into their vehicles. $18.9 million. Gone. The FBI had no witnesses. No alarms had been triggered. It looked like a ghost job. But Pace got greedy. He started buying real estate, expensive properties, all cash transactions. Banking records led investigators straight to him. The perfect inside job, destroyed by the one thing he was trying to steal: money. In 1911, a maintenance worker pulled off the most famous art theft in history with nothing but a coat. The Louvre was supposed to be secure, guards everywhere, priceless art protected by the world's best security. But Vincenzo Peruggia had inside access. He worked there. He knew the routines. He studied the patterns. On a quiet Monday morning, he simply walked up to the Mona Lisa, lifted it off the wall, and slipped it under his coat. Nobody noticed for 24 hours. When they did, panic erupted worldwide. International manhunt launched. Even Pablo Picasso became a suspect. But Peruggia was already home, hiding Leonardo's masterpiece under his bed. For 2 years, the most wanted painting in the world sat in a cramped apartment. Then Peruggia tried to sell it to an Italian art dealer, claiming he was returning stolen Italian heritage to Italy. One problem: France had legally bought the Mona Lisa centuries earlier. His patriotic theft was completely pointless. But it made the painting world famous forever. The perfect irony of the perfect crime. In 1978, a Bulgarian writer was murdered in London with the most ingenious weapon ever created: an umbrella that fired poison. Georgy Markov was a dissident who criticized Bulgaria's communist government on BBC radio. The secret police wanted him dead. On a busy London bridge, a stranger bumped into Markov with an umbrella. Markov felt a sharp sting in his leg. The man apologized and disappeared into the crowd. 3 days later, Markov was dead. Doctors found something incredible during the autopsy: a tiny platinum pellet, smaller than a pinhead, lodged in his thigh. The pellet was hollow, filled with ricin, one of the deadliest poisons known to man. The umbrella had been modified with a compressed air mechanism. One press of the trigger fired the pellet through a tiny hole in the tip. Scotland Yard traced the weapon back to the Bulgarian Secret Service and the KGB, but the killer was never caught. The umbrella murder exposed the deadly creativity of Cold War assassins and changed how governments protected dissidents forever. In 1982, someone turned America's most trusted medicine into a weapon of terror. 7 people in Chicago bought extra-strength Tylenol. All 7 died within days. The killer had carefully opened capsules on store shelves, replaced the medicine with deadly cyanide, then put them back like nothing happened. Panic spread nationwide. Store shelves emptied. Parents threw away medicine cabinets. The FBI launched one of the largest investigations in history. 140 agents, 100,000 interviews. They chased every lead. Johnson & Johnson made an unprecedented decision. They recalled 31 million bottles, $100 million down the drain. But they saved countless lives. The case changed everything. Those tamper-proof seals on your medicine? They exist because of this killer. Investigators found fingerprints, DNA evidence, witness accounts. They came close dozens of times, but the Tylenol killer vanished. 40 years later, the case remains open. A $100,000 reward still stands. The killer could be your neighbor, your coworker, still alive, still free, still out there. In 2009, a young Malaysian financier pulled off the most audacious financial heist in history. Joe Low didn't break into a vault. He didn't crack a safe. Instead, he stole $4.5 billion from his own country's wealth fund. Low created a web of fake shell companies across the globe. He forged documents, bribed officials, made the stolen money disappear into dozens of accounts. But here's the twist. Instead of hiding, Low went on the most expensive spending spree ever recorded. He bought mega yachts worth hundreds of millions, private jets, paintings by Basquiat. He threw parties with Leonardo DiCaprio and Paris Hilton. Most shocking of all, he used the stolen money to finance Hollywood movies, including The Wolf of Wall Street, a movie about financial crime. Investigators from 6 countries launched the largest money laundering investigation ever. They traced cryptocurrency transactions, followed paper trails across continents. Today, Joe Low remains one of the world's most wanted fugitives. The man who stole billions and partied with celebrities is still on the run. In the late 1960s, a killer terrorized California with a weapon more chilling than any gun: his mind. The Zodiac Killer didn't just murder 5 people, he turned it into a twisted game. After each killing, he sent cryptic letters to newspapers, complex codes that taunted police, threatening more deaths if they didn't publish his puzzles. He wore a bizarre costume, a black hood with a white circle and crosshairs, like a walking target. The killer would call police stations, calmly claiming credit for murders in a cold, methodical voice. Investigators followed thousands of leads, questioned countless suspects, but he always stayed one step ahead. For 51 years, his most complex cipher remained unsolved. 340 characters that drove codebreakers insane. Then in 2020, amateur puzzle solvers finally cracked it. The message was chilling, but it revealed no name, no location, nothing useful. The most infamous serial killer in American history outsmarted everyone. He planned perfectly, executed flawlessly, and vanished completely. The Zodiac Killer was never caught. For 3 decades, Willie Sutton robbed banks without firing a single shot. He was America's most famous bank robber, but he never used violence or threats. Instead, Sutton was a master of disguise. He'd dress as a police officer and walk right into banks. Sometimes he posed as a postal worker, other times a maintenance man fixing the vault. His charm and acting skills fooled everyone. Sutton spent months preparing each heist. He studied bank layouts, memorized guard schedules, perfected his costumes down to the smallest detail. In 1947, he pulled off his most daring escape yet. From prison, using a gun carved from soap. The FBI put him on their first ever most wanted list. A nationwide manhunt followed for 5 years. They finally caught him in 1952. Reporters asked why he robbed banks. The quote that made him famous: "Because that's where the money is." But here's the twist. Sutton always denied saying those words. He insisted a reporter made it up. The quote became criminal folklore anyway. In 1986, a woman learned to fly a helicopter for the most romantic reason imaginable: to break her husband out of France's most secure prison. Michel Vaujour was serving time in La Santé prison for armed robbery. Maximum security, concrete walls, armed guards everywhere. His wife Nadine had a plan that sounded impossible. She secretly took flying lessons, studied prison layouts, waited for the perfect moment. On a sunny May morning, she piloted a helicopter directly over the prison courtyard. Michel was waiting on the roof during exercise time. In under 3 minutes, he was gone. The couple went on a crime spree across France, robbing banks, living like modern-day Bonnie and Clyde. When police finally caught Michel, he wasn't done. He escaped again. Another helicopter, another daring rooftop pickup. The French media couldn't get enough. This gentleman criminal who never gave up his quest for freedom. After a dramatic chase across Parisian rooftops, police finally captured France's most wanted man. But Michel Vaujour had already become a legend, the man who turned love into the ultimate escape plan. Did you know an FBI agent sold America's biggest secrets to Russia while hunting Russian spies as his day job? Robert Hansen was the perfect double agent. By day, he caught foreign spies. By night, he was one. For over 20 years, he lived 2 lives: devout Catholic family man, trusted FBI counterintelligence expert, and Russia's most valuable asset. His tradecraft was flawless. Dead drops in Virginia parks using trash bags and tape, encrypted communications that left no trace. He never met his handlers face to face. The Russians paid him $1.4 million. In return, he gave them everything: agent identities, secret operations, even the location of a tunnel under their own embassy. Dozens of American sources were executed because of him. The FBI had no idea their own agent was bleeding them dry, until they turned a Russian double agent who revealed Hansen's identity. On a cold February morning in 2001, they caught him red-handed at a dead drop site. The most damaging spy in American history, finally trapped by his own game. Did you know America's greatest chess champion became one of the world's most wanted fugitives? Bobby Fischer defeated the Soviet Union in 1972. He became a Cold War hero overnight, the chess genius who beat the Russians at their own game. But 20 years later, Fischer made a move that destroyed his life. In 1992, the US had sanctions against Yugoslavia. Playing chess there was illegal for Americans. Fischer didn't care. He played anyway. The moment he made his first move, he became a federal fugitive. For over a decade, Fischer lived in hiding, false identities, multiple countries. growing more paranoid by the day. He made anti-American statements, called his own government terrorists. In 2004, Japanese authorities finally caught him. The US wanted him extradited. Fisher faced 10 years in prison, but Iceland had other plans. They granted him citizenship to save him from American justice. The chess master who once represented American greatness died in exile, protected by a foreign government from his own country. One illegal chess game cost him everything. In 1972, a smooth-talking businessman pulled off one of the most audacious financial heists in American history. Robert Vesco didn't rob banks. He robbed an entire mutual fund company. $224 million. Vanished. Vesco had gained control of Investors Overseas Services, a massive fund managing billions for wealthy clients worldwide. Instead of investing their money, he funneled it into his own accounts through a web of fake companies and shell corporations. When investigators got close, Vesco made his escape. He loaded his private jet with cash and gold bars, then flew to Costa Rica just hours before federal agents arrived with arrest warrants. For 35 years, he lived like a king in exile. First in the Caribbean, then Cuba. Protected by corrupt officials he'd bought with briefcases full of money. He ran drug operations, laundered money for cartels, even tried to bribe Nixon administration officials. The FBI chased him across 3 continents, but he always stayed one step ahead. Until 2007, when he died in a Cuban prison, still facing fraud charges. The ultimate fugitive who beat the system until the very end. In 1977, Danny Green survived so many car bombings that Cleveland newspapers called him the man who wouldn't die. Green was an Irish-American mobster who did something unthinkable. He declared war on the entire Italian mafia. He wore only green clothes, claimed he was descended from Celtic warriors, and left calling cards at crime scenes like some twisted superhero. The Licavoli crime family tried everything to kill him. Car bombs, sniper attacks, ambushes. Green walked away from explosions that should have turned him into dust. Cleveland became a war zone. Bombs exploded almost every week. The FBI counted 36 separate attempts on Green's life. He seemed invincible. Green would taunt his enemies, show up at their businesses, make them paranoid and desperate. But on October 14, 1977, the mafia finally got him. A remote-controlled car bomb, perfectly timed. Danny Green was dead, but his war had an unexpected consequence. The massive FBI investigation that followed completely destroyed the Cleveland Mafia. Green won the war by losing it. In 1970, a group of college protesters decided that peaceful demonstrations weren't enough. They called themselves the Weather Underground, and they were about to launch one of the most sophisticated domestic terror campaigns in American history. Over the next decade, they would execute 25 bombings across the country. Government buildings, corporate headquarters, military installations. But here's what made them different from other terrorist groups. 0 casualties. They called in warnings before every attack. They studied blueprints for months. They knew exactly when buildings would be empty. Their leader, Bernardine Dorn, lived underground for 11 years. False identities. Safe houses in 12 states. A network so tight that the FBI's massive manhunt called Operation Chaos couldn't touch them. They made their own explosives using chemistry textbooks. They moved like ghosts through America's most wanted list. But in 1980, something unexpected happened. Dorn and her partner Bill Ayers decided to surface. They walked into a courthouse and surrendered. The charges? Almost nothing stuck. The FBI had broken so many laws hunting them that most evidence was thrown out. The perfect underground operation, undone by government overreach.